Okay, everyone, thanks for joining today. We'll give it just a few more seconds, maybe like 20 seconds or so, as some people are starting to pile in, and then I will start the webinar. Today's webinar is going to be all about trust account compliance and everything that you should be aware of and watching as a property manager. And we'll start that in about 15 seconds. Okay. All right. Well, we'll start off now. All right. So thanks for everybody. Like I said, I'm Jeff Dowdle. I'm the VP of Sales for PayProp in the North America. And the webinar today is going to be related to trust accounts and the compliance of trust accounts and some tips and tricks and best practices that we've learned over the years that property managers should be on the watch for, as well as how you can use tech and some of the things that are out there in the space to be able to guard against the traps that can be the trust account compliance nightmares that some of you may or may not have heard about in the past. Also, as we're cruising along through this webinar, I'm going to, there is a ability for you to submit questions along the way on the questions tab in the webinar controls, and you can submit those and I'll answer those at the end. And then hopefully you'll get some great information out of the webinar today. The webinar is going to last about 30 to 35, and then we'll allow for some time for questions. So not quite the full hour, so that you'll get some time back, but I want to make sure that we hit all the important points along the way. All right, so first off, let's start with a basic definition. Some of you are probably may already have a good definition of what a trust accounting is. But on the screen, trust accounting for property managers refers to the specialized accounting process used to manage funds held in trust on behalf of property owners and tenants. So that means and ensures that those funds are accurately then recorded, tracked, and safeguarded for those particular parties. So that's the true definition of trust accounting. But there's a lot of key aspects within trust accounting that you need to be aware of. We're going to hit a few of these along the way. First one is going to be segregation of funds, accurate and thorough record keeping, trust ledgers, and what are those? Bank reconciliation, security deposits, compliance with the legal requirements, and then any auditing and reporting things that you need to watch out for as well. All right, so the first one we're going to talk about is the segregation of funds. So in most states, you're required to keep client money and funds separate from your own business accounts. This separation allows for the business to avoid the commingling of those funds and provide accurate client accounting to both your tenants and your property owners. And some people go to very great lengths to accomplish this. I've heard stories from property managers that they go so far as opening separate accounts for every single property to ensure that there is no commingling of those funds. And that's really one of the things that you have to watch out for as a property manager, is to make sure that you have an ability to prove that along the way that that is not happening. The second one is related to that. It's accurate record keeping. So accurate records and ledgers are one of the key components to make sure you have a solid trust account practice across your business. These records should be maintained and have clear and concise account records in regards to all financial aspects of your business. This can be a real challenge to have to jump back and forth between your bank and your ledger, and to make sure that everything is matching and is reconciled completely each month. But it's of the utmost importance because of some of the other key components I'm going to talk about in a minute. So first off, I refer to as a ledger, a trust ledger. So what is the trust ledger aspect of this? So the ledger, or the trust ledger, is the record of what is happening along the way in your business. Now, a lot of times, some of you may be using spreadsheets or QuickBooks or any of these other software programs that exist out there that keep track of that for you. But that's not where your responsibility ends, because the ledger has to match and make sure that it's associated with the income and expenses associated with each individual property. And it has to make sure that the bank accounts and your ledgers say the same thing. It's not just enough to know that your trust ledgers are taken care of, but also your bank account has to be reconciled along the way and match those trust ledgers. So it's very important to make sure that that's occurring. So that leads me to the next point, which is bank reconciliation. This is one of the as many of you know that are doing this, this is one of the largest tasks and most time-consuming parts of the property management world, and also one of the things that most people don't want to do, but it is one of the most important parts. Most people would be out there wanting to talk to new clients, new owners, expanding your business, running your business, and doing the things that we love about property management. And bank reconciliation is not necessarily one of those. But it's super important to make sure that we're going through that process. And again, it's the process of making sure that the funds held in the trust or that are flowing through the client money trust accounts are matching the recorded balances and matching the recorded transactions in your bank environment. And it can be really tough to do because a lot of times those are coming in large chunks, large batches, and you really have to dig in to find out what those look like across the board. Many also here have gone through great lengths to make sure that they are in compliance. And sometimes if you get behind or you're wrong and you're wrong for a few months, it can be really expensive to try to catch up. And you really have to sometimes employ outside help to do that. It's very important to make sure that you're on top of this. I know some people in the business try to do it on a daily basis to make sure it doesn't get out of hand. So because once you do get it out of hand, it can be very expensive to get back. And it's very hard to do that on a regular basis, on a daily basis, if you're not on top of it. All right, so the next part of that is around security deposits. So obviously we're talking about different trust accounts, and there usually is a couple of different trust accounts that you need to make sure you have set up. The first one that we've been talking about is the money flow account. Rent coming in, rent going out, distributions to owners, distributions to contractors, all of those, all the moving pieces that can happen in that first trust account are paramount to make sure that they are accounted for and tracked. Now, the other part of it is the security deposits. Most people have a second trust account to park those security deposits in there because there are very strict laws in most of the states related to how those are handled and what you need to do. And typically, most of us know what the definition of that is. It's on the screen there. And there's a lot of complexity and laws around this, mainly about how you're handling them, separate bank accounts from all of the other accounts, and the return of the deposits, and a good accounting at the end of that tenancy as to what happened to those security deposits, what the money was spent on, and how that's accounted for. Really important to make sure that those kinds of things are also highly detailed on a per property basis. And that can also be a very big lift for property managers to have to keep track of. All right, the next one we're going to talk about is the compliance with local laws. This is of the utmost importance because I'm talking a lot in general aspects right now, because every one of you that are in different states are going to have different laws and different scrutiny related to how this is handled in a more detail. The stuff that I'm talking about today is the general gist of most of the states. Some states don't require trust environments, which is much easier, but you can still employ these practices to make sure that your business is ethical, and you can use that in your marketing in terms of the ethics of your business. But most of the states have some level of specific laws related to it. So make sure that you are in compliance with those laws. Make sure that you're adhering to those local, state, and federal regulations related to property management, such as disclosing any interest on trust funds if you have those in an interest-bearing account. I know most property managers that I talk to avoid that process, just put it in a non-interest-bearing account to make sure that that doesn't occur and you don't need to worry about that. And then also providing timely reports to property managers and owners. Those are some very specific examples of what most states require, but there's a lot of other ones that you need to be on top of. The auditing and reporting function. Most of the states have the ability and will, on occasion, perform an audit of property managers' books to ensure compliance with local laws. They should be, and in most cases have, detailed reports of the accounts to the tenants and property owners as well. So you need to make sure that not only do you have your books in order so that an auditor can come in and line that up and say, yep, everything looks good. But also you need to make sure that those reports are also going out to property owners and tenants related to their property. And the tenants have reporting requirements along security deposits and transaction histories and different things like that that you need to be aware of across the landscape as well. Okay, so those are some of the major components related to trust accounting and the traps that you can get into. So the next question I have is, are you doing this? If the answer is no, or the answer is maybe, sometimes part of those things we're doing, in many of the states, that means you could be at risk for getting into trouble, which includes a lot of times fines and or up to license suspension in many states. So it's super important that you're on top of these things. So what are some of the things that you should be doing to make sure that you can attack those main components that I just went over? So the first best practice is to implement internal controls in your business. Establish a robust internal control procedure to prevent fraud, misappropriation of those funds, and that can include segregation of duties. Have certain people be able to do certain things in your business and separate those duties out, so you don't have one person in control of certain things to help guard, and have a two-factor authentication type process along the way. Make sure that you're doing regular audits of yourself inside your own business, and that you're doing periodic reviews of your business. A lot of times if we get big and we're a growing business, we start hiring people underneath us, sometimes we can get detached from the day-to-day of that business. We need to make sure that we get back into that day-to-day, because ultimately we are the ones responsible at the head of the business for how it's running. So make sure that you occasionally get in the weeds and get down and look at your business at a real granular level. Again, this is one of the most important things, I think. Also goes back to what we talked about on one of the components about knowing the local laws, is making sure that you are up to date with those relevant laws and regulations and the industry standards in your area. Most of the real estate schools in almost all the states that I know of have legal update classes for property managers that they offer. Very good idea to get involved with some of those. There's also a lot of local associations. One of the ones that we are involved in on a national level as one of their national partners is an association called NARPM, stands for the National Association of Residential Property Managers. Really good organization, really good networking organization to make sure that you are on top of what's going on and keeping yourself educated to ensure compliance. Because being out of compliance, ignorance is not an excuse that the state is going to take. And then if you do get into hot water or in over your head, or you feel like you're in over your head, make sure that you're seeking the services of professional people to help you with that. That involves certified public accountants, trust auditors, anyone else that can add an additional layer of assurance and expertise to your business and the things that you're needing to accomplish to stay in compliance with those local laws around trust accounting. The other best practice that many have used and are using are utilizing some sort of trust account software or service. Trust accounting software can streamline your financial management processes. It can automate a lot of the things that I've been talking about today. and it can provide automation of reports across the table. So that's really kind of where all of this is leading up to, is what are some of the ways that you can use tech, as including PayProp, to streamline these processes, to keep these processes in a much more efficient way, a much more cost-effective way across your board. Now, typically, what we are talking about is that most property managers have a system like this. They have a property management software, they have a banking environment, and then they have an accounting software possibly, or they're creating those statements individually inside their business. And these three distinct bubbles are very separated and only connected through somebody in your business that's making those connections. Some level of personal touch has to occur to go back and forth, whether this is a spreadsheet or any of the other software services that are out there to keep track of your business. Then you got to go back and forth to the bank, and then you got to create statements and reports and tax reporting and everything else at the end of the year to be able to accomplish that. So really, that is what the standard environment looks like. But what PayProp does to help streamline that for you all is brings all of them together in one seamless platform. And in that platform, everything that's occurring in the property management space is simultaneously happening in the bank account, as well as generating all of the reporting mechanisms that you need that we were just talking about along the way. So what is PayProp really going to do for you in that process? Well, because of the way that we're connected into the banking system, and we are actually on the banking rails like that, we can provide real-time rental management across the board for property managers. The only way that we can do that is because of what I talked about in relation to our real-time bank integration. A lot of systems will claim to be bank integrated, but they're not actually inside the banking system. We sit on top of the banking rails, so we know we have a direct connection to all the updates that the bank gets on a daily basis. So talking about daily reconciliation, that's something that our system would let you accomplish. You can do real-time reconciliation and payments every single day, all along the way through the month. So at the end of the month, when you need to then create communication out to tenants, owners, create audit reports for your files, all of those things, it's already built just by you using the process of PayProp. It's a very secure and compliant platform. Obviously, it has to be bank grade secure. And then also they're not long-term contracts. So I wanted just to go briefly through some of the things that you could use a PayProp system for, to be able to get a hold of and track through the reconciliation process. So really, inside PayProp system, this is a screenshot of what the inside of it looks like. But the main thing that I'm going to focus on is what we were talking about today, is how this system can help automate your reconciliation process. So the first thing that happens, obviously, to get the money flow going in, is we need to send out invoices to tenants and get that money flow coming into the system, right? So that we can then track it. So what our system does is it sets up a basic property profile. And in this basic property profile, we have an area where it sends out those notifications to the tenants. When those tenants get their notification, comes through in a tenant portal, it gives them the ability to pay. And inside that tenant portal, there's a complete history of all of those invoices and the transaction histories. It's going to give them a secure online environment for them to be able to pay their rent, as well as get any details relating to their account. So it's the delivery of those statements and reports that we were talking about along the way. It's instant rental payments. Now, this is different, and I won't spend a lot of time on this because it's not necessarily on the topic that we're talking about today. But we can talk, if anyone wants to talk about this later on down the road in a more personal demonstration of the product. Instant rental payments is one thing that none of the systems that exist out there can claim. And it's really about how the visibility of that occurs. When they click pay in my system, I know same day what's going to go on with that payment. There's no ACH failure risks. There's no 3 to 4 days before that shows up in my bank account. We know instantly. And I can talk more about that in subsequent demos if that it piques your interest. But because I sit on the banking system, this is second to none in terms of the performance of how our system runs. It gives you up-to-date payment histories within that portal. It allows for full damage deposit visibilities. And these damage deposits are ring-fenced and separated into separate accounts. Everything inside PayProp on the front end is all you have to worry about. We handle on the back end the complexities and the organization of your business through the accounting and the bank accounts that need to be set up to do that. But you just have to run PayProp and know that you're in compliance. One thing also that you need to know about PayProp and how we set up is that because of the way that we run, we actually have to be licensed brokers in every one of the states that we operate in as well. So because of that, we have the same risk as property managers to make sure that these accounts and these aspects of the system are being audited, are being tracked and reconciled on a monthly basis as well. And then we also have a reporting maintenance tracking feature inside that tenant portal. Not going to touch on that today because, again, it's outside the scope of what we were talking about in terms of how to keep yourself safe on the reconciliation process. But just know that there's a full maintenance portal that we can go into in a demo down the road. Okay, so once we send out those invoices of the tenants to get that money to flow in, that money is coming in. Now, the beauty of our system in that regard is when that money comes in like clockwork, it's just going through and marking your ledger as paid when they come in and pay, and you don't even have to touch it. If all of your tenants are good boys and girls and they pay their rent on time, then it's just going to mark that ledger and you won't have anything on this next report, which is the tenant in arrears report. Now, this is the report that will show up when people haven't paid or they have ACH failures, and this is real time. So the morning of the 2nd of the month, you can go in and find exactly where you are in the process. And it's going to allow you to have a very complete history of everything that's going on in your rental business in terms of the collection. Now, along the way, obviously, people are going to have problems, delays, be on vacations, all of those things. So this just allows you to send a gentle nudge to them. You click on the emails, it's going to send them in a general email out to them, a reminder. It's also going to send out texts for them automatically. So with one button, you can send all of your roster that is late or still needs to pay, reminders to pay. Once you send off those reminders, it's going to go across their devices in various different ways and remind them of that. And we find that 85 to 90% of the time when you do that, they just forgot or they misplaced or they didn't click pay that day or at the particular right time. And so most of the time, that's all it takes, and off you go, and you've got a complete rental history and complete collection. Now, as they come in, it will update in, again, real time, the tenant arrears report. So again, you're going to have that aspect to be able to know exactly where your business lies any moment in the day. And then also it gives you the ability to turn on and off the debt chasing features. You can put notes in the system as well. So if they are on vacation, you can go through and notate that and then remove them from the debt chasing activities so you're not bugging them with that. All right, so that's the beauty of the system on the collection side. On the collection side, it auto collects, it auto matches. Every single transaction is tracked through the banking environment on an individual basis. That money will not be batched. It will not be in a big lump sum that you have to go try to figure out. Our system takes care of all of that for you. So it obviously streamlines that entire front end process of trying to make heads or tails of who's paid and who hasn't paid, and also alleviates the risk of ACH failures along the way. Now, the next piece of that, though, is obviously once that rent comes in, it doesn't just sit there. The next piece of that is I need to move it, right? So as we're moving along through the process, this is a basic profile in our system. So we set up the property to say, all right, this is the payment distribution rules here. So as the property manager, I would put myself in first line to get a distribution. Then the second line is the owner. And then, but obviously along the way, there's lots of bills and things that need to occur a lot of times. So our system allows you to then create those rules of payment for those contractors, for the distributions. Say this is a contractor, they're charging me $75. There's the invoice number. I can attach the invoice and attach that. And when I do that, it's now going to put that particular contractor in place right there for distribution. Excuse me. And so once that occurs, then you are now set for this particular set of rules to happen. So as that rent comes in, it's now going to start marching through these rules, and it's going to execute on these payment instructions that you've now put in place. The other thing that I want to call out here is this ability to have a property account or property reserve amount. Again, this is also ring fenced and accounted for on an individual property basis. So if you set a minimum balance of $200 and you've gone through the month and you've used 198 of it, like we have in this example here, it's down to $2 left. It's going to auto top itself off when that rent comes in back to $200. And then it's going to go back up here to the top, and it's going to go through each one of these payment rules. And as it does that, it's going to prompt you through a little dynamic bubble on the dashboard to say you've got outgoing payments you need to approve. So your bookkeepers, yourself, your CPAs, whoever's in charge of this part of your business can easily go through and look and approve these payments. Now, I have clients that are in the system that will have some people that will have the ability to create payments, and some people in my system that have the ability to approve payments. Again, that goes back to what we talked earlier about having checks and balances, separations of duty, as well as making sure you have a two-factor authentication as you're moving the money through. Now, as soon as you hit distribute on this particular aspect, again, this is something that is very different than my system because it acts like a bank. It is not just a property management system. But once you go through and you hit approve all, or you remove a few here or there and then hit approve all, whatever date you put here, that's when that's being sent off, and that's same day. So when you distribute, those owners will get their money today. Those contractors will get their money today. Now, the benefit of that is with my system, because of everything that I'm talking about, as we talked about earlier, the reconciliation process for a property manager is a huge bulk of the month. But with my system, you could be over with a 10th of the month easily, as long as the collection behaves along the way, because everything's automated. Once you set this up, it runs. It's a set it and forget it system. And the only thing you have to do is make small tweaks here and there along the way for contractor one-off payments or changes in tenancy. The rest of the time, you come in, you set it, you collect your rent, you send off the payments, you're done. And it distributes on a very fast process. So talk about competitive advantage in your marketplace. If you can tout that you're going to pay your owners faster than the other property managers in the area, it's a good get to be able to put that out there and rely upon that. Now, inside the system, it's going to allow for users and permissions to be set up in any way that you want. So like I was talking about earlier, the two-factor authentication aspect, you can set up certain people to collect payments, certain people to create invoices, certain people that can set up vendors, lots of two-factor authentication or checkpoints along the way to make sure you're not putting yourself at risk for anything related to the financial product. Also in the system, everything we do is audit logged and tracked. So if you need a report for anything, payments, invoices, tenant notes, all of it, everything can be exported into the system, out of the system, into CSV files for tax reporting, audit reporting, whatever needs to occur, we can handle and we can export it out for you. All right, so the next section I'm going to talk about is a little bit about the communication aspect of the compliance for trust accounting. So we've been talking about the financial aspects here and how this system can help you with those. The next piece is, obviously, there's a lot of laws and disclosure aspects to making sure that not only do you do it internally and have the ability to, at the end of a month, press one button and print out a reconciliation report in my system, but also make sure that all of that communication is going out to the owners and the tenants. Well, we help with that. We have an owner app that's going to allow you to your owners to have access in real time to everything that's going on as you're moving along the way in your property management business. If you have people that have multiple homes, there's a portfolio performance report inside the app that they can get access to. And in that app, it's going to be, like I said, building this in real time. So at any point in the month, they can go in and see what's going on, where their rent is, what expenses are scheduled to go against the rent for the month, as you're building it and adding that to the schedule within the PayProp system. It has full ability to house your agency details or your property management company's details, so that they can easily get a hold of you through the app. Again, it's real-time updated and real-time statuses along the way for third-party payments, as well as incoming and outgoing payments. And then everything they need is in one place. So they can look at costs, rents, statements along the way. Now, also, they're going to get the standard PDF reporting. So they're going to get owner statements, cash flow, in and out, balances, tenant balances. They're going to get monthly, every time you're making a payment, they're going to get invoices and receipts related to those payments. And they're going to get a PDF portfolio statement as well. So if they have multiple homes, again, they're going to get a portfolio summary along with owner statements that are stacked behind that. And then inside the app, they're going to get real-time notifications when you're sending money to them. Now, when you send money to them, like I said earlier, the minute this says that money's been transferred to their account, they're getting it that day. So that's the beauty of those push notifications within that app. They're going to be really excited about the fact that their money is coming in a fast mode. Also, landlord communication can occur via text, so that you can turn on the text messaging aspect so they can get the text messages as well. And then also, like I said, they have full ability to look at each individual properties within that app, to be able to look at the live balances, get their owner statement from here as well all month long. They also are going to get landlord communication via email. So you can see that there's a portfolio statement button here, individual statements for each one of their properties there. So again, lots of communication to the landlord and to the tenant are related to exactly how their transaction history is happening. All right, lastly, I'll go over a little bit about support and onboarding, and then I'll open it up to questions about any of the stuff that we've talked about today, see if there's any questions. Onboarding and support. Obviously, when everybody's talking about tech and learning about new systems and all of those different things, it sometimes gives people a little bit of stress about having to implement something like that into their system. And that's typically because the way that most software or SaaS companies that are out there that provide prop tech or fintech, they are telling you, okay, here's your software, here's how it works, here's the YouTube channel to look at the tutorials, here's our call center if you have any problems, good luck. That's not how we operate. With our system, we are going to be the ones that are setting up your system from front to back with our account managers. You're going to first off get assigned an account manager that you're going to know by name. They're going to know you by name. They're going to know your business inside and out, how your business is growing, what your hopes and dreams are for that business, and how we can fit into that process. We don't like to take the idea that you need to fit into PayProp's world. We want to fit PayProp into your world and improve what your business efficiencies are right now. And so in this process, we will get all the information. We upload all the information. We set up all of the initial data. We make sure that it's all in there and ready to go. We help with the communications to your landlords and your tenants. We do all the induction training for you and any of your staff. And then we're there on an ongoing basis behind the scenes to make sure that we're there for your support and aftercare all along the way. And like I said, you're not going to get somebody who is a call center offshore. My people are here on the North American continent. They're going to know you. English is their native language. They're going to be able to help you all along the way as you're needing to implement something like this. And that's really why we get the reviews that we're getting, why we're getting some of the buzz that we're getting related to this particular system, not only because it helps solve for one of the largest risks of your business, but also because we help with efficiencies, costs, and with all that time back in your business, it allows you to then go out and business prospect, meet with people, network with people, and expand and grow your business and continue to do what you wanted to do in the first place, which is go out and meet people and meet new people and bring on new doors and not sit behind a computer screen and crunch numbers. So that is the end of our slide deck. So I'm going to turn off the screen, and you'll get to see my beautiful face and see if there's any questions along the way, and see if anybody has any questions related to what we talked about today. All right, so some are starting to come in. All right, one of the ones says that they want to know what is the difference between PayProp and any of the other software services out there. Okay, good question, because you know, there's lots of options out there. The biggest one is what I was talking to earlier, is the auto reconciliation and the connection in the banking platform, as well as the instant movement of the money. None of the systems are connected in that way. They're all connected through a loose banking connection, which is basically just going out and calling transactions and bringing that data into your environment. Someone still has to go through and match them. Someone still has to put their eyeballs on them. With our system, that is not the case. Our system auto does that along the way because it's inside the banking environment. We actually act as a bank and we act like a bank. We send files back and forth to a bank, just like the banks do to each other, for transactions and instructions on how to handle those transactions. So with those things in mind, that's really how this process will set up and be different than any of the ones that are out there. All right, so another question. Let's see, we got another one that just came in. What is the price point per month, and is it per property or one flat fee? Very good question. So we are very customized in that regard. And so what we do with the pricing is we take a fraction of the percent of the incoming rent that crosses our system. So, and as your portfolio grows, that percentage shrinks so that it's on a bell curve. So it's a very customized process and pricing for your particular business based on how big or small your business is. We have people that with 2 or 3 doors. We don't have minimums like a lot of the systems that exist out there. We have people with 2 or 3 doors that are bringing in, you know, $4,000 or $5,000 a month in rent, and we have people with thousands of doors that are bringing in $1 million plus in rent. And each one of their prices is custom built for them based on that particular collection process. So I would love to be able to talk to you about that pricing later on. And we can build that. If you're interested in taking a look at that, we can build that pricing live with you on a particular personal webinar to go over that. Okay, next question. Let's see. Yeah, so how can PayProp help me with year-end tax time processes? That's a really good question. So PayProp, because we are doing everything all day long or all month long and all year long in regards to this reconciliation, trust accounting, tracking, all of that, the year-end process becomes very easy. So we have a couple of different routes for that. I know a lot of you have a requirement to send out 1099s for the tax purposes in the US. And so we have that set up. I won't go into too much detail on that, but we have the ability to set that up on the back end so that it's an easy report that can be pulled down out of the system and then uploaded into one of the various electronic distribution companies that are out there for 1099 reporting. I think one of the ones that we use charges like $3 to send off the 1099 to the owner, but it's one seamless download of the 1099 file. Upload that 1099 file into the system, and you've just sent off all of your 1099s in a matter of minutes, rather than have to spend days and weeks trying to fill those out and gather those numbers individually. All right, last question I think that I have is does PayProp handle and track maintenance requests? We do that. We have a full, that's something that I can show you on a subsequent webinar as well. If you want to reach out to us after this webinar is over, you will get an email from us that gives you the ability to book a demo with me or one of my reps to go over some of the more detailed components of that. But in short, the maintenance side of the business is tracked. And also the other nice part of it is that it's the maintenance requests, the ticketing, all that stuff, not anything groundbreaking. But I think the big thing is that you can also then, as you close those tickets out, set up the payment to happen at the same time, all in the same system, and automate that entire process as well. All right. So I think that is the end of the questions. So if there's no other questions, like I said, you will be getting a follow-up email from us with the ability for you to submit your information if you want to meet with me or one of my reps to go over things specifically after the webinar. It will also enter you into, once you do sign up to do that, we're giving away an Apple Watch Ultra for anyone who sits in those demos as part of this webinar. So if you submit that and then come into and do the demonstration sometime in the month of May, then it will enter you into the process to win that watch. So that is it. I really appreciate everybody's attendance today and interest in our webinar, and looking forward to talking to you further. We will have probably future webinars around other topics. We'll bring in experts, things like that. So be watching for those. We'll go ahead and send those off as we set those up, but really excited about this industry and how PayProp is going to help everyone with this particular aspect of the industry. All right. Thank you, everybody. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.